Welcome to Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Episode 16, the Galileo 7.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise takes time out from a vital rescue mission to explore an unusual cosmic phenomenon. When the shuttle and crew dispatched to gather data goes missing, Kirk must act quickly if they are to be saved without jeopardizing the ship's primary mission. With the clock against them, tough decisions must be taken. But can the captain save his men in time?
If any minor damage was overlooked, it was when they put his head together.
Not his head, Mr. Bell.
His heart. His heart.
Are you okay, Ian?
I'm coping. How are you, Gerry?
How's the heart? How's the head?
Of one mind for a change.
Uh-huh.
How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
A bit angry.
Are you? What are you angry about?
Kirk. And the rest of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
They've infuriated you this
They have,
week.
actually, yeah.
Did you like Commissioner Ferris?
I initially didn't, but then I grew to have sympathies with him. And by the end of it, yeah, I was on his side.
Interesting. Controversial.
Really?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be.
We'll see what folks say.
We will.
Thought there was... I say it's interesting. There's always a bit of a risk when you split the crew up in this way and take half the folk and separate them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting division.
2 weeks ago, I commended Kirk on his great man management and leadership.
You did?
This week, he demonstrates some of the worst examples of that I can think of. From start to finish.
Well, we don't get to see the decision-making process a lot of the time in this episode.
Is there one? Or do they just toss a coin?
Well, you assume before we start, he and Spock and presumably McCoy and Scotty must have had a meeting where they discussed this phenomenon.
Yeah, you would presume that, but clearly this meeting had been cancelled or postponed because it was erratic at best. It seemed utterly...
Yeah.
It actually infuriates me.
Nobody on the shuttle seemed like they were there under duress.
No, but they're putting their trust in their leader.
That's true. Maybe they should have kept that up a bit longer.
I think considering the recent rough times the entire planet has went through, Kirk's decision making and his lack of, his cavalier approach seems far too similar to some of the other leaders that we've witnessed, and it's not a time for taking chances. It's not a time for trying to act the big man.
Well, we'll get to it in due course, I'm sure.
Oh, we certainly will. It's the purpose of this podcast.
You've got a few things to say.
Yeah, I probably... Now, I think we sort of semi-informally established that we would maybe be allowed one naughty word per episode.
Okay.
I think we're going to have to extend that to at least one each. Now, we won't go the full-on F's and C's, but...
not this week.
Not that I would like to. I might have to bring out the beep machine.
Just for your true feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we get into the episode?
Crack on.
We open up with a captain's log.
2821.5.
Kirk summarises the situation. So the Enterprise is on its way to Macus 3 to take vital medical supplies to a population that's suffering from a pandemic.
Yes.
Appropriate.
Very much so. Vital medical supplies. Pandemic.
Yeah.
It's not something that you mess around with. We'll get there.
Okay. They're passing a quasar formation called Murasaki 312.
Yes, but they also have on board a guest.
They do. I think it's Galactic High Commissioner Ferris.
Yes, save Ferris. It's a Ferris Bueller reference, doesn't matter. So what ranks this High Commissioner? Where does that stand in the grand scheme of things?
I think he's the only High Commissioner.
So there are people above the High Commissioner?
Yeah, so my take on this is that the High Commissioner probably is a different branch of the organisation. So a commissioner, he maybe head up like the relief project, and that there's a special set of circumstances. I mean, I think he quotes a very specific regulation later on that allows him to take command of the vessel.
He does, yeah.
So my interpretation was that this is a guy who doesn't really work in the same sort of field as Kirk. He works maybe in disaster relief or in humanitarian line, and it just so happens that he's on the starship because it's required to carry out the task.
Yeah, he is responsible for the delivery of the medicines.
He is. But
we're on the bridge.
Okay.
Let's set the scene. We normally start on the bridge.
Yeah. The commissioner's not happy.
No, he enters, and I like this, he pauses to brutally oversee the bridge and immediately makes it clear that he doesn't agree with the unscheduled study detour. Tell me about this detour they're taking.
Okay, before that, I loved the overhead shot of the bridge. We don't get a lot of that. That was really nice. It gives you a good sort of perspective on where everybody is relative to one another rather than the normal view.
It did.
So what's happening here is Kirk has standing orders to investigate any quasar or quasar type phenomenon that he encounters because they're so rare and they presumably don't last for long.
Total job's worth, Kirk. Oh, but I need to do it. It's my job, don't you know?
Also, I think he wants to do it.
Yes, but obviously. But you have to, in these circumstances, you throw the rule book out and you make decisions based on what is best for the entire population in this case.
Well, from Kirk's point of view, he's not jeopardising that at all. He's got 5 days till their scheduled rendezvous.
This whole podcast could just be a rant because, no. We've got 5 days, but this is vital medical supplies for a pandemic.
Yeah, but if he arrives 2 days early, he's going to have to wait for 2 days.
If it was half a day's car drive away in a busy area, you could say, do you know what, that's fine. We can detour somewhere because we've got play. And also, if you weren't renowned for getting your ship and your crew into difficult situations, we've seen many times, it's not like, oh, we're only going to take a little detour out to this very safe colony that we've been before. There's no risk. He's taking a massive risk, and he's got a history of getting himself in trouble.
Well,
so those 2 days aren't enough. That's not like, I've got 2 days, what can possibly... Lots of things, we've seen lots of things going wrong with you, Kirk. Shambolic, idiotic decision to be making. Your ego is writing checks that the Enterprise can't... You don't even write checks anymore, do you?
No,
your ego's tapping payments, contactless payments that your phone can't... You don't have NFC in your phone.
Yeah, okay.
You mug.
That's a very stretched simile there.
But anyway.
I think we also see tension between the two men. I think Kirk is probably displeased that there's a man on his bridge sort of not giving orders at this stage, but asserting authority of a sort. And I think that puts Kirk's nose out of joint. And I get the impression that this isn't the first time Ferris has done that since he came on board.
Yeah. In fairness, Ferris may well be aware of the reputation of Kirk and be aware of the problems that his ship has faced. So he's thinking, this guy's a risk taker. I'm not. But it gets worse because it's not just this. It's an out-of-control plague. That's what they call it, an out-of-control plague. You don't take risks in this situation. Get the medicine there, and then if you want, go back, turn around. You'll get one another time.
It's fine. The president of New Paris said they're going to open everything up. There's no problems.
Yeah, I mean... Hug, kiss, it's fine. Herd immunity.
We're not having our freedoms impinged by this virus.
Kirk casually tells him it's no problem. Yeah, 2 days. I'll sort it out.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
So we're down in the launch pad. What's this called? The docking? The
shuttle bay maybe, or
okay.
something like that. I think it's the engineering deck at this stage they're launching these shuttles from.
Yeah, Kirk communicates down to this place where we see him okay the exit of the Galileo Explorer shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
Which is helmed by...
Well, it's got Spock on board along with Scotty, McCoy, Boma, a few others, a yeoman.
Yeoman Mears.
Yeah.
And Gaetano.
And the one that dies first. Latimer.
Yeah.
So they're all with 7 of them on board.
And we get a nice visual of this ship exiting from the back end.
Yeah.
We've not seen that before, I don't think.
No, and it wasn't in the original. Well, it wasn't exactly the same. This is a remastered version of this shot.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some good trivia about that. We'll get to that later on.
But it was nice. I like the look of it.
This is the first we've seen the shuttlecraft, although they were mentioned, I think, in Conscience of the King. I think when he was doing the tour of the ship, he showed the shuttle bay off as part of his tour, but we never saw the actual craft at that stage.
Inside Galileo, Spock asks his navigator for some readings, but doesn't like the answer, which is that...
Yeah, they're all over the place. It's erratic, and there's radiation.
Yeah, the quasar is disrupting it.
You know, things have gone south rapidly.
And they don't know how much, so they can't adjust for
Nope.
for this effect.
Spock orders a full stop, but the shuttle won't comply.
But not only that, they can't even communicate back down to the Enterprise.
No, Boma advises that there's ionic interference which is preventing it.
On the bridge, all Uhura can tell Kirk about the spacecraft is that it has been pulled off course, and Sulu admits that the readings are all over the place and he can't make any sense of them.
Yeah, apparently there's only 4 solar systems within this feature, so they'll find it easily, won't they?
I'm sure. And at this, the computer informs Kirk that the radiation levels are so high, they are prohibiting the instruments to work. So he's finding out what Spock has already, and his crew have already found out. And at this, Ferris looks on with a very snide, I told you so, and I am enjoying watching you panic look on his face.
Yeah, it seems bizarre that they haven't anticipated this and maybe sent a probe out ahead of the shuttle.
Again, it's just terrible. Why would
It's
you...
a rush job.
Reckless.
And we finally get the credits at this point.
But before that, Kirk sits in his seat and I think he compares finding Galileo to the proverbial needle in a haystack.
Exactly.
And then, as you say, we have the credits followed by another Captain's Log 2821.7. Bit of a recap.
Yep, Quasar whirling like an angry blight with 7 crewmen still missing.
And systems gubbed.
That's basically it.
So, back in the bridge, as a new yeoman, or one that's new to us, delivers drinks.
Takeaway coffees.
Yeah, to Kirk and Ferris. They have a bit of a frank discussion about the situation. And a lot of finger pointing is going on before Uhura has something helpful to contribute.
I was opposed to this from the very beginning. Our flight to Marcus 3 is of the very highest priority.
I'm aware of that, Commissioner. At the same time, I have certain scientific duties I must perform, and investigating the Murasaki effect is one of them.
Yes, but you've lost your crew.
We have 2 days to find them.
2 days. In all that? 2 days.
What would you have me do? Turn around and leave them there?
You shouldn't have sent them out in the first place.
Captain, there's one planet in this solar system capable of sustaining human life. It's type M. Oxygen, nitrogen, and it's listed as Taurus 2. It's unexplored. As far as we can determine with our equipment malfunction, it's just about dead center of the Murasaki effect.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Mr. Sulu. Yes, sir. Set course for Taurus 2. Aye, sir.
So again, hammered home the fact that these supplies were vital. Kirk, and I agree with what Ferris says, you shouldn't have sent them out there in the first place. You're being a dick.
Yeah, well, I told you so, essentially.
Yeah.
There's a deleted line from this scene, which would make things seem... In fact, did he say it, or was it deleted? I didn't listen close enough to your clip there. My understanding is it's been deleted where Kirk says that if they're not on that planet, they're dead anyway.
Yeah, deleted.
Yeah, I don't think he said it.
Listen, in future...
Well, I didn't hear it because it wasn't said. Yeah. So, yes, and that would make sense. That's why they're now... This is good news. So they know that there's a planet here, they're either there or they're dead, so we'll check there. And if they're not there, then we can leave.
We're down on the planet, so this is Taurus 2, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. The Galileo has crash landed and the crew are all dazed and or injured.
Minor injuries.
Mr. Boma suggests that there was an exponential increase in the speed they travelled at as they get deeper into this, what is it?
The Murasaki effect.
That's it. And they were shot into the centre. A theory that Spock agrees with.
Yes, the two of them have got off on a sound footing.
Obviously a friendship that is blossoming.
Indeed.
Scotty, he then surveys the damage to the equipment and notes that it is a mess. And Spock begins his terrible term as a leader by chastising him for having the audacity to make this point.
Yes, Spock, I think, is not comfortable at this stage. I think he is not used to having to make big decisions, and he's not sure how to handle it, and he's maybe going back to what he sees as first principles, try and get back to logic or get back to a basic step-by-step, this gets done, and this gets done, and this gets done, and I don't have time to listen to you guys giving your opinions or your thoughts or your emotions.
He's very much a sort of theory-driven person, but as we know, when you try to apply that theory in the real, you need more than that.
Yeah, but he's been brought up to learn, or brought up learning, that this is how you solve problems. You apply logic to the problem and the solution presents itself.
To Scotty's bemusement, Spock tries to communicate with the Enterprise before McCoy tells them that the atmosphere is breathable as long as they are not in a running competition. And again, Spock acts like a bit of a... I don't like anyone in this episode, really.
Yeah.
So he... what is it he says? He tells them he just wants the facts.
He doesn't want any opinions. And to be fair, it is a very serious situation. You can understand that Spock might want folk just to keep focused on enough of this sort of jocular, we're not all lads together in a shuttle
Perhaps,
trip.
but they weren't high-fiving and running about, and, you know, it was a throwaway comment, and you say, yeah, we're in a serious situation. That's correct. But sometimes that's what you need then. They're all actually in fear of for their life here.
Well, yeah, they're reacting emotionally. They're concerned. They're trying to kind of cover that up a little bit with humour or even just kind of normal behaviour, if you want to look at it that way, and he's not really relating to that.
So he then tries to take control and orders Scotty to survey the damage again, while Latimer and Gaetano have to arm themselves and scout the surrounding area.
Once they're off, Spock and McCoy discuss their chances to be rescued.
It's a very stark opinion that Spock has here. Can you remember what it was?
Yeah, well, he thinks there's no chance as long as they remain on the surface of the planet. So they're going to need to find a way to get out into orbit.
But they're in big trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Back up in the bridge, Uhura and Sulu confirm that they have nothing in terms of finding the shuttlecraft, as Ferris continues to smugly look on with arms folded, and in addition to this, the transporters are not working.
No, and Ferris taunts Kirk once more, saying that you don't really think you'll have any luck, do you? His disregard for the lives of these crewmen is quite clear. They're not his mission, so it's not his problem.
Yeah.
There's more people dying on New Paris, so let's go.
Now, Kirk decides to sort of double down and chase his losses at this point by preparing Columbus to go and search for them.
Yes, but of course they're now inside the phenomenon, so it's not going to be affected the same way they would imagine.
Ferris pipes up and questions what he's doing, quite rightly. But I think Kirk tells him that they still have time. These are his friends, his colleagues, and he will continue to look for them as long as he can, which is a commendable attitude, but he shouldn't have got himself in this position in the first place.
No.
To which Ferris grudgingly accepts this approach.
But he reminds him that the regulations state, I'll be able to take over at this point, and Kirk's very much aware of that, thank you.
Yes, before he gives the order to launch Columbus. So we're back down on Taurus 2. Outside the craft, McCoy joins Spock, and for some reason, perhaps because of Spock's previous attitude, thinks now is the best time to accuse him of always wanting to lead by logic, and this is his big chance.
It's very different. We've seen McCoy and Spock have some good moments, like friendly moments in the series, and McCoy is really antagonistic here. He sets Spock up for the failure that he experiences.
Yeah.
He prods him and then he nudges the others as well. We heard in the clip at the start of the show. So he's supposed to be Spock's friend. Spock's thrown, not by his own choice, into this situation where he's in command of this shuttlecraft and this crew. And instead of supporting him and giving him advice, McCoy taunts him and prods him and rallies the others against him.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, no one in this episode, none of the main players come out of this looking good. What I would say is, yeah, he's been thrown into this. It wasn't Spock's choice to go here and lead. However, it's his choice of how to do it, how to lead. And he's made a decision. Well, I mean, is it a decision? If it's your personality, perhaps you can't change it.
He's just going with his understanding of how the best way to do things.
Yeah. In any case, Spock denies this desire to lead, although he admits to understanding the fascination with it. Instead, he claims that he neither enjoys or is frightened by it. Rather, he simply acknowledges that the need exists, and he will use his logic to do what needs to be done.
Precisely. Back inside the shuttle, Spock takes Scotty's report, which essentially reads that they need to leave 3 folk behind if they want to get off the surface.
Yes, £500, which I think in our language is about 35 stone, 3 grown men. And this causes McCoy to look up anxiously and suggest that perhaps they could lose equipment instead of people.
Yeah. I don't think Spock at this point is picking anyone out to be left behind. He's just observing that that's what the way it is.
Yeah, but he's not picking anyone at this point. However, there are 7 of you. You need to lose 3. Your chances aren't great. I wouldn't like to be in that position.
50-50. Better than 50-50.
Yeah, just. Not great odds. Spock responds by claiming that all of the equipment is necessary. The only excess weight is amongst the passengers. It's a bit like a horror movie, isn't it? It's the type of thing, we've discussed this before, I think we've mentioned it, but it's like, yeah, you're trapped somewhere and you've perhaps got to eat one of your friends to survive.
Oh no, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, never again. Still can't get the taste out of my mouth.
Yeah, a bit like duck crossed with chicken. No? Okay.
A chuck.
Boma at this stage is not frustrated so much with what Spock is saying, but the fact that he's saying it without concern.
Yeah, and also he suggests that they draw lots.
Yeah, I thought what Spock might say is he'd look for volunteers.
That would be the first.
So if anyone's happy to stay behind.
So here's the thing, is that at this point, obviously the risk is that you will die, but is it a guaranteed death? Is it like, you stay behind and we'll go and get help and come back?
Yeah, because if the folks go up, get rescued, then they can say, well, they were at this point on the planet, yeah.
Yeah.
And at this stage, they don't know anything about any threat.
No.
But still, Boma's upset.
Yeah, and Spock says his decision will be based on logic, and even when McCoy notes that life and death is seldom logical, it makes no difference. Achieving the goal is all that matters.
Sure. And we then get the moment we heard at the top of the show where McCoy sort of winds Boma up a wee bit.
We do. A little bit later, on Taurus 2, outside, Latimer and Gaetano are exploring some steam-covered rocks when they hear what?
Some sort of throbbing.
Heavy breathing.
And then Latimer goes to investigate and is killed by a massive spear.
He is. Hearing his scream, Boma and Spock rush to see what's happened. And as they are doing this, we see Gaetano climbing down into the ravine whilst firing his phaser all over the place. He's panicking. Random shots.
Yeah.
So Spock and Boma get to him, and in some distress, he claims he thinks he hit the thing, which was like a giant ape.
King Kong.
Boma feels sorry for Latimer, but Gaetano, obviously worried about their own situation, responds by saying that at least he went quickly.
Well, that's true. He was just impaled by that massive spear.
He was killed by a giant spear-carrying ape. Ah, well.
These things happen, you know. Could have been worse.
So Spock, who had went over to look for the ape, returns, telling them that he found nothing, before inspecting the weapon and having some words with Mr. Boma.
Nothing there.
I tell you there was.
I don't doubt your word.
Oh, there must be something. I swear I hit it.
Folsom Point.
Sir?
This. Remarkable resemblance to the Folsom Point, discovered 1925, Old World Calendar. New Mexico, North America. Bit more crude about the shaft, I believe. Not very efficient.
Not very efficient. Is that all you have to say?
Am I an error, Mr. Bowman?
You, err? Impossible.
Then what, Mr. Bowman?
There's a man lying there dead. And you talk about stone spears. What about Latimer?
My concern for the dead will not bring him back to life, Mr. Bowman.
Mr. Spock, in the interest of efficiency, you don't think we should leave his body here?
Bringing him back to the ship should not interfere with our repair efforts. If you need assistance,
We'll do it.
So do you know what a Folsom Point is?
Is that the bit just in between
No. My understanding is it's a reference to archaeology, Earth archaeology in the 20s in New Mexico, a spearhead. But why Spock would refer to that, I don't know.
Maybe the writer was reading about it that week and wanted to sort of show off his knowledge.
You do tend to see a little bit of contemporary American modern history in this show from time to time.
So we then see Boma and Gaetano carrying Latimer's body back to the ship before we have a captain's log 2822.3.
Yeah, my notes just say search isn't going well.
That's pretty much it, yeah. Up in the bridge, Ahura informs Kirk the Columbus has returned from searching the first quadrant with negative results.
Transporters are also still unsafe, And Ferris is there to remind Kirk that his time is running out, which Kirk is very well aware of.
Yes, he acknowledges this before ordering the transporter to go to overload power and for the Columbus to expand its search results.
Well, it's to expand its course by 2 degrees on each orbit, so it's going to, instead of covering every inch of the planet, it's going to take a sort of a slightly wider route, miss little strips, and hopefully cover more of the total area.
Yeah, I think Sulu is unsure about this approach, but Kirk stands firm and tells him to mind his helm. I'm in charge.
Yeah. Ferris leaves at this point. He's, without physically doing it, he's tapping his watch as he goes to the turbo lift.
Yeah. He's 24 hours, I think, at this point, left. It's a dire situation. Back in the shuttlecraft, Scotty is doing what he can to boost the power, whilst the others are looking for things to get rid of to save weight, although they're still £150 short. I mean, in fairness, you're thinking, okay, Latimer's dead, that's...
One down.
One down, yeah.
They've got rid of enough stuff to save another one. So there's one more.
Yeah.
Spock rationalises that the 5 lives that would be saved are worth more than the one that would be lost in that event.
It's a fair point.
McCoy's not having it.
No, he claims he's not talking about rationality, to which Spock fires back that he would be wise to start. They're really sniping at each other, aren't they? Everyone is in this episode. It's a very niggly, agitated episode.
I'm talking of niggly. Boma comes in with a bizarre request.
What's that?
He wants Spock to come and give a few words of memoriam for Latimer.
A complete nonsense. This is again Latimer's, Boma's time to... the first time he acts the beep, because...
He gets upset when he won't do it.
We're trying to save our lives here. I'm working on trying to get us off this planet. You want me to go and act like some sort of minister, some sort of vicar, some sort of priest?
And then McCoy backs him up.
Yeah.
It's your place to do this, Spock.
This is crazy.
He's trying to save people's lives by fixing the shuttle.
Oh, I get
Spock's
angry.
the one that's in the right in this occasion.
In this occasion, yes, he is.
Time passes after Boma storms off. And suddenly there's a loss of pressure.
Why is that?
A line has given out and they've lost all their fuel.
Things are just getting worse and worse.
So one thing they didn't want to happen.
So Spock asks Scotty to consider alternatives and insists there always are. There's not always.
There's not always, but you might as well look.
And at this, McCoy rushes in to warn them that something is happening outside. So we are outside now. And what's happening?
We can hear these aliens again. They're making some kind of noise.
Yeah, everyone's out there apart from Scotty. They're crouching down, and I think someone, is it maybe Spock, claims it's the noise of wood rubbing on leather.
It's very specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
Boma has this theory that they're a tribal group, and Spock says it's unlikely.
And then he inexplicably thinks that the best course of action, therefore, is to attack them first. This is Boma, rather than wait around.
Yeah, so first of all he says they're a tribal group, and Spock says no, they're not. And then Boma says, as a tribal group, the best way to deal with them is just to punch them in the nose, essentially.
Yeah, it's not.
So that's not based on anything. Why would that affect a tribal group more than anybody else?
Exactly. Yeah, so this causes Spock to show utter contempt for how humans view the sanctity of life, which seems a bit of a role reversal from what I've understood Spock.
Yeah. I mean, grab his phaser rifle.
Exactly, with his big gun. He loves a bit of killing, but no, not this time. Perhaps when he's in charge, he feels he can't. Maybe he's...
Perhaps he's a giant ape spy.
Could be, yeah.
We've seen accusations of this against him before.
Oddly enough, McCoy agrees, along with Gaetano, and even Spock admits that it is logical, but yet still refuses to sanction a proactive assault.
Yeah, because he agrees, yeah, okay, logically maybe that would get rid of them, but I don't want to kill anybody. Which is, I think, a fair enough command decision.
Yes.
And they can't get on him for only ever doing the logical thing when he's going against his logic to make a compassionate decision.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do.
He offers a third option and sends McCoy and Yeoman Mears back in to help Scotty. He then orders the other two to follow his orders precisely and only fire with the intention of scaring their enemy as opposed to killing.
You get quite a lot. We've seen so far quite a lot of officers like Gaetano and Boma on this ship. We've seen the fellow from Balance of Terror.
Yeah, we've got Rodriguez and Shore Leave. And
yeah, there's a few of them just like to shoot.
Yeah.
Tomlinson, does he? Yeah. Well, so he worked in the phaser room, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And even before that, there's others that are aggressive, trigger happy, don't like Spock for no particular reason. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, they're not happy and remind Spock of Latimer. But Spock puts his foot down and they set off in search of the threat. So we're on some rocks a little time later. It always feels like they're trying to... Everything's very condensed.
Yeah.
So literally just round the corner.
Well, when Latimer died, Spock and Boma heard and were there quickly.
Yeah. They soon come across the ape creature in the middle of these misty rocks and it attacks him with a spear and a shield, forcing Spock to fire.
Yes, Gaetano is not happy that they aren't going to go ahead and kill this creature now.
Yes, but Spock reminds him again who is giving the orders. And so as they take aim, Spock himself climbs up onto a rock and then gives the order to fire. I think they say the sort of 10 and 2 position, so spreading out as opposed to aiming directly ahead.
Yeah, this is intended to frighten the creature.
Yes, they do this until Spock tells them to stop, and apparently this has the desired effect of putting off the attack for a while, even though they wanted blood.
Gaetano is then left on guard in this position while Spock and Boma return to the shuttle.
I think you can see. I think Boma gives him a little pat in the back as if to say, "Good luck, pal." And Gaetano's not too happy to be left there on his own. So we're back in the shuttlecraft. Spock enters with an overly confident pronouncement that they won't be bothered again by the apes.
Where's that come from?
He's just making it up. He has no idea.
It's just him trying to show leadership. This is what Kirk does. You just act confident, make massive leaps in logic, and assume that you're right.
And it's fine if it works, but he's very quickly proven to be wrong, and yeah, just dreadful stuff here.
Yeah.
So Scotty has a dangerous idea. What was that?
It's drain power out of the phasers that they have left and use it to fuel the shuttle.
It's just so crazy it might work.
Well, yeah.
McCoy points out that the phasers are their only defence, but Spock responds by saying that this solution is their only hope. I mean, I think he considered it for all of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
He's not really put a lot of time into. Is this their only hope?
Who knows? I think maybe Obi-Wan Kenobi is their only hope.
In any case, he asks Yeoman Mears for her phaser. She's a bit worried about handing it over. She thinks the apes will attack again, but Spock can now... Oh, that's annoyed me. He can now tell her specifically that they won't try again for a few hours.
I think she's specifically concerned they're going to carry her to the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah. So how does he know this? Where is he getting this from? A few hours. He's now not just saying they're away, or he's saying it'll
specifically away.
Yeah, at least 2 hours. I know for a fact.
Yeah.
Don't talk rubbish.
He's just mimicking what Kirk does. You just say something and then it happens.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go so well for him.
Yeah. Anyway, on a more positive note, and the only chap in here in the episode who comes out with any sort of credit, Scotty is convinced that he can adapt the phasers to get into orbit, but claims that he can't hold it there for long. So Spock points out the reality. In 24 hours, the Enterprise will be gone, so they don't need to hold it there for too much time.
Yeah, they'll be dead soon anyway.
Yeah.
Up in the transporter room, the one scene when the Enterprise out of the bridge, I think, from that little shuttle bay shot at the start, the transporters are now working because the boxes came back in the same shape as they went down.
Yes, Kirk enters just as this has been proven, and so orders 3 landing parties to prepare to beam down to search for his crew. But he does admit, I think, that he needs a massive amount of luck.
Well, even if you think about it in terms of our planet, if there were 6 or 7 people somewhere on the planet, and you had 3 places you could send people, what chance would you have of finding them?
No chance.
Unless it's very unlikely that you would land right on top of them.
Yeah. Back in the rocks, Gaetano is scrambling about and panicking as the noises have returned and is quickly done for by a man wearing a carpet.
That's a bit harsh. I think he contributes to his own demise here. He panics and drops his weapon and runs into a dead end.
I've got a big question here.
What's that?
Might be controversial. Did Spock leave him there as a sacrifice? Is this one of his decisions? I need to get rid of another... Is it 2 people at this point? And he is deliberately putting someone at risk. Now, it's not a certainty that he'll die, but he's thinking, I'm going to leave him on his own. If he is done for, then I know I need to get rid of 2. So let's see what happens.
That is a possibility, I would say. I mean, it's obviously not addressed directly, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Sometime later, and Spock is now at the scene with Boma and McCoy. He picks up Gaetano's phaser and hands it to McCoy along with his own to be returned to Scotty for fuel.
Yes, and this infuriates Boma because Gaetano is missing and Spock gave his gun to Scotty. I don't know why that would upset you.
Yeah, I've taken a note here that Boma is trying to keep, he's got a rage on here, he's desperate to explode, but he doesn't get the chance to let it out before Spock heads off to satisfy his apparent natural curiosity about what happened.
Yeah, he's kidding you. There's no logical reason. He just wants to go and recover the body for the rest of the crew.
And McCoy seems as confused as Boma and states that Spock is risking his life to find out where Gaetana is, but then he'll be just as likely to tell him to remain behind if he does find him alive.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. Gaetano's injured, he certainly wouldn't be asking him to remain on duty. And he's not got his phaser. So, I think what McCoy's trying to show up here is the fact that Spock is acting in a way that seems emotional when he's been taking all these unemotional decisions to this point. But again, I don't think that stands to analysis. I don't think he has been taking purely logical decisions. And again, this is another one. It's not purely logical. He's off on an emotional mission to recover a crewman's body.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Further into the rocks, Spock comes across the body, splayed over a rock. Although I must admit there was little evidence of injury. If you've been mauled or attacked,
not allowed to show that.
There was nothing. You could put a little bit of blood.
You'll never see any blood.
You don't want to see intestines being ripped out and a face scratched and ripped apart, no?
No.
Okay. So with some sadness, he lifts him onto his back. But as he makes his way to the Galileo, he himself comes under attack from spears and only just manages to return, where he sits and he contemplates things as a very unhappy Boma stands over him. It's almost threatening. Like,
yeah.
He's sitting there and as if Boma does want to grab him and shake him and say, look what you've done. And he just restrains himself. McCoy, however, he can't hold his tongue and makes the point the rest of the crew are probably all thinking.
Well, Mr. Spock, they didn't stay frightened very long, did they?
Most illogical reaction. When we demonstrated our superior weapons, they should have fled.
You mean they should have respected us?
Of course.
Mr. Spock, respect is a rational process. Did it ever occur to you they might react emotionally? With anger?
Doctor, I'm not responsible for their unpredictability.
They were perfectly predictable. To anyone with feeling. You might as well admit it, Mr. Spock. Your precious logic brought them down on us.
Why haven't they done anything?
They're studying us. For the moment.
Another prediction, Mr. Spock?
My opinion, Mr. Boma.
Seal the windows. Studying us, Mr. Spock. They seem to learn rather quickly. All right, Spock, you have all the answers. What now?
Mr. Boma, your tone is increasingly hostile.
My tone is the only thing that's hostile, Mr. Spock.
Curious. Most illogical.
And I'm sick and tired of your logic.
We could use a little inspiration.
Strange. Step by step, I've made the correct and logical decisions. And yet 2 men have died.
And you brought our furry friends down on us.
Yes, I do seem to have miscalculated regarding them. And inculcated resentment on your parts. Some of the parts cannot be greater than the whole.
A little less analysis and more action. That's what we need, Mr. Spock.
How much longer, Mr. Scott?
Another hour, maybe 2.
Won't be long enough.
Doctor, a phaser can only drain so fast.
How long do you think those plates will hold out into this?
It's like a dark night of the soul for Spock there.
Yeah. They're entirely correct. Maybe not. Maybe it's not the right time to be saying it, but he has been a disaster. And one of the things that stood out there, and he was pulled up on it, is that he always thinks, or always feels the need to even pretend that he has an answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just say, I don't know. I'm going to try and do this to get us out of this situation, but I don't know what they're doing. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're going to do next. It's fine.
Do you not remember back to when we had the 2 Kirks when he split and he was told that if I appear indecisive, then I've lost my ship. Basically, the crew won't respect me anymore. So Spock's heard that. Spock's learning from that. That's who his mentor is.
Yeah, potentially, I suppose. But
And also, I think McCoy's completely wrong, because it's not his logical actions that have brought the hairy beasts down on them. It's his illogical decision not to kill them.
yes,
That he admitted was illogical at the time.
you're right, yeah.
They're just using the logic as a stick to beat him with, because they know it's a sore point, maybe, or not a sore point, but a way that they can needle him.
Yeah, it's a weakness that you can...
And it's something that they are leaping to assumption, or not leaping to assumption, but they're using as a outlet for their anger and their frustration at the fact that they're all trapped in a planet and they're going to die.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so, under severe attack from the apes and pressure from his crew, Spock seems uncertain about what he should do next. I think it's interesting that we can see this sort of insecurity, a realisation, I suppose, that...
Crisis almost.
As a crisis, yeah. He doesn't know, and I think in most circumstances or situations he's been in, it's always been straightforward. Do this and this should happen.
Yeah, and logic will lead you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I quite enjoyed the fact that we can see this vulnerability.
We get another captain's log.
28.23.1.
The landing parties are continuing, haven't found anything. Scanners are starting to work a bit better as the ionisation dissipates.
And back on the bridge. Kirk too is under immense pressure and snaps at Uhura when she doesn't have the latest updates that he's after.
We've seen this from him a few times. When he's under the most pressure, he does have a tendency to nip at people.
He does, yeah. But again, understandable.
Yeah. Ferris gives him a 2-hour, 43-minute warning.
Yeah, doesn't help, does it?
No.
And Kirk tells him that he will continue to search until the last moment and tells him to keep his nose out of his bridge.
That's not fully appreciated by Ferris, is it?
It's not. I think what he says is his tone, or he ponders how his tone will be viewed by the authorities. But again, Kirk tells him he is in charge, and Ferris agrees for the aforementioned 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Down on the shuttlecraft, Spock and Scotty have a plan to shake the aliens off them for a moment.
Yes, it's quite inventive. I like this.
Yeah, they're going to use the power that's left in the batteries to electrify the outer hull.
So Spock orders the crew to the centre of the ship and tells them not to touch the outside and to insulate themselves. This plan seems to have worked. Or it seems to work.
Yeah, at least momentarily.
And Spock appears at this point to have learned his lesson and realises that it will only be a temporary measure, so he's not giving any...
no more guarantees.
Yeah, that'll be fine. The electricity, that keeps him at bay for 1.3 hours. Trust me.
Boma, though, has reached the end of his tether.
Tell me about this.
Well, he insists that they have a burial for Gaetano, even though Spock is concerned at the risk they would expose themselves to because there are giant attacking aliens right outside the shuttle.
Yeah, I think I've noted here that Boma steps up his arsehole quotient.
What is his obsession with burying people?
I have no idea. I mean, I get the fact that you want your friend to be buried, but not in these circumstances.
It's just like he's trying to make a point with it.
Yeah. But Spock, he points out the madness in terms of the risk. But
this is where Boma...
Bit of insolence here.
Well, he says that even if it was Spock who was dead, he would insist on a burial. And although they've basically not said anything up until now, Scotty and McCoy suddenly jump in and say, that's too far.
Yeah, that is too far, yeah. I think he actually says he's sick and tired of this machine.
He does. I think that's maybe more than the dead body in the back of the shuttle line.
Yeah. Up on the bridge, Uhura has an urgent video message for Kirk from, I think it's some Kelowitz of the landing party.
Yes.
They've returned with 1 dead and 2 injured.
Yeah, that's a decent ratio.
So let's, at this moment, Kirk has caused the death of 2 down there. That's 3 deaths.
So far.
Yeah, good work, Kirk.
2 of them are on Spock's ledger.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have been in that position if it wasn't for his initial decision. Yeah. So he has this on his conscience.
Ferris shows up with the sort of countdown clock going in the background.
Does he, yeah? But what's the message of...
Sorry, he tells Kirk about the alien creatures and that
12 foot tall.
If the shuttle crew are on the surface, they've got no hope. Although how can he know that those aliens go anywhere beyond the region he was in?
Guesswork.
Yeah.
Another bad... Yeah, he's given this information that he doesn't know to be accurate.
Yeah. And as I say, Ferris shows up at this point to tell Kirk, your time's up.
Yeah, and this annoyed me. So throughout the entire episode, Ferris has made this point and Kirk's agreed, yes, I know I've got a certain amount of time left, and after that, you're in charge and I know what your decision is going to be, But when he tells him that, he's almost incredulous. Well, what do you mean my time's up? It's my guys are still doing. Yeah, you know that. You've been told. Don't give me that.
Here. Kirk's obviously arranged this to give himself the maximum extra time beyond the limit. Despite this, he gives the orders to return the search parties to the ship and to bring Columbus back.
A supplemental log here, I think we have.
Yeah, just confirming that the other parties have transported back and the Columbus is on its way. And we soon learn that it'll be 23 minutes as we go back to the bridge where the sensors are back online.
Yeah, so that's 23 minutes is all they have left now.
Yeah.
As soon as it returns Zarovsky. Back in the Galileo, Roman Mears tries to communicate with the Enterprise with no luck, just as Scotty says that he has rigged up the phasers and it now should be possible to get into orbit for a few hours.
They'll be leaving in 10 minutes, so Spock joins McCoy and Boma for a quick funeral.
Always good to squeeze one in when you can.
Well, I like to.
Yeah. Quick shot back up in the Enterprise.
Columbus is aboard. It's time to leave, but Kirk orders Sulu to do so very, very slowly.
Yes, what is it? It says it's
space normal speed, which I assume is basic impulse or half impulse.
Does that get mentioned again?
I don't remember hearing about space normal speed.
Yeah.
But the sensors which are now working are to be pointed back at the planet.
Yeah, at full function and in continuous operation.
Yes.
Back down on Taurus 2, the burial is interrupted by a further spear attack, and so they try to retreat to the spacecraft, but Spock gets himself in a bit of bother.
Yes, he's trapped under a piece of polystyrene about 4 feet wide.
He tells them to go. It's cliche, isn't it? He tells the rest of them, leave me. They're only a few feet away, and it's a very small rock.
They're not really adding great extra risk to themselves by coming back for him.
Yeah, so McCoy and Boma run over to him, remove the rock, and he doesn't even have a broken leg. He can just...
No, he's fine. At this point, the aliens... No, sorry, Spock is angry.
Yes, even...
So an emotional outburst from Spock.
It is an emotional, but he can't let it lie. He should be thankful and grateful, but even now, he has to chastise him for not obeying his orders to leave him.
But none of them are leaving now because the aliens are physically holding the shuttle down.
Yes, they are. So Spock takes on another decision. What does he...
He's going to use some of their fuel to get the booster rockets firing to get them away from the aliens and off the surface.
Yeah, but this means that they can't hold orbit for any sort of time now.
Yeah, but Spock warns them that they shouldn't be getting too excited about this anyway because they're probably going to burn up on re-entry and the Enterprise won't even be there. Leadership by inspiration.
In any case, they do manage to take off. But again, even now, Spock can't let things lie.
Gentlemen, by coming after me, you may well have destroyed what slim chance you had for your survival. The logical thing for you to have done was to have left me behind.
Mr. Spock, remind me to tell you that I'm sick and tired of your logic.
That is a most illogical attitude. Orbit in 1 minute, Mr. Scott. Fuel status?
15 pounds PSI. Approximately enough for one orbit, sir.
After that?
Tapping our boosters ended our last chance for a soft landing.
You mean a burn-up?
That is the usual end of a decaying orbit.
I don't want to die up here.
Infinitely preferable to the kind of death we'd be granted on the planet's surface, I should think.
I admire your ability to make so measured a choice.
Mr. Spock, you said a while ago that there were always alternatives.
Did I? I may have been mistaken.
Well, at least I lived long enough to hear that. Is there anything we can do?
The Enterprise is surely on course for Marcus 3 by now. I, for one, do not believe in angels.
Well, Mr. Spock, so ends your first command.
Yes. My first command.
Orbit attitude, Mr. Spock. With our present fuel, that gives us about 45 minutes.
But wait.
But even, okay, we can't let that go. I mean, his leadership there was terrible, his man management. He's making people panic. He's basically saying we're all dead. Why say that now?
Yeah, we're going to burn up, but at least we're not getting beaten to death by hairy aliens.
And McCoy as well, shocking, having a go at the last few moments of their life.
Yeah.
Well, you wanted this on your head, be it.
That's it. You remember, Spock. You caused this. We're all dead. It's all because of you.
But in a last-ditch effort of desperation, Spock tries to communicate with the Enterprise before. He tries I think in your American football world, what's it, a Hail Mary?
You might call it that.
What is it?
He jettisons some of the fuel and ignites it.
Yeah, Boma claims he's out of his mind, and I think Spock claims that, yeah, he might be. To which Scotty tells them that they now have about 6 minutes left.
Oh well. Over on the Enterprise, Kirk looks a bit depressed. He's listening to sort of routine status reports and suddenly is perked up by Sulu.
Yes, he sees something on the screen. It's the burning jettisoned fuel. At first they don't know what it is.
Yeah, they wonder if it's an asteroid, but it's too straight a course, and Kirk figures it out and immediately orders a full reverse.
He does.
Without Ferris there to interfere.
On the Galileo, Scotty has worked out what Spock did and congratulates him on a good gamble.
It's starting to look a little bit warm on board the shuttle at this stage.
Yeah, and I think Spock's still very pessimistic about their chances. He knows it's a long shot, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's smoke, there's sweat, there's flushed faces.
Yeah.
And they're now, I think, about 10 seconds away from burning up in the atmosphere.
Yeah, but McCoy is delighted to get one final jab in on Spock.
He does. This is why.
His
Really?
friend.
You, of all the, yeah. Oh, yeah, you won. Yeah, you won. That's right. Well done, McCoy. Yeah. You
feel
pleased with yourself, yeah?
He points out that Spock's final act was a human one and not a Vulcan one, and Spock agrees it was an illogical decision.
Yeah.
Up on the bridge, Uhura reports to Kirk that they have transport lock, but they don't know what they're going to be beaming up.
And we see in the Galileo that they are beamed up. They sort of disappear.
Yes.
In front of us.
Sulu then immediately reports that the shuttle burned up in the atmosphere, or what they assume was the shuttle.
Yeah.
And the transport room, after a presumably painful wait for Kirk of a few seconds, reports that 5 living people have been recovered.
He sent down 7, 5 come back. Well done,
He
Captain.
looks delighted. It's like, yes, only 2 dead. Yeah.
Shocking.
Oh, I hope it's not Spock.
I don't know which two. McCoy and Spock are dead.
No, the only ones I like.
We'll have to have another one. I don't even know his name.
Yeah.
Oh. And at this point, see, it's not. At this point, he didn't know about the 2 deaths.
No.
So this should be a case of, oh no, the back up.
Died, yeah.
I've got 2 people are dead. He's like, yes.
And not even waiting to see, are the other 2 on the surface? Do they need rescued?
Yeah.
It's like, no, warp 1 to Marcus 3, let's go.
I'll take that. So we're on the bridge a little later.
Yes, Kirk is taunting Spock about his illogical act of desperation.
Yeah, tell me about this. How does it sort of wrap up?
Well, Spock tries sort of gamely to justify it as a logical act, despite having admitted to McCoy on the shuttle that it was not. And Kirk calls him a stubborn man, but you can see how relieved and delighted Kirk is to have his friend back.
Yeah, and I think Spock at the end sort of, he feigns confusion when Kirk points out the contradiction in what he's saying. There's a little eyebrow gets raised.
Yes.
And as if to accept it. Now, as credits roll, and we fire off with, what's it, Warp 1?
Yeah, they're on their way to Marcus 3, if they've not already got there.
Yeah. So, there we have it. Now, I should say that whilst this enraged me, this episode, in many parts, and the decisions, it didn't detract. It didn't mean that I did not enjoy it.
No, it was a good episode.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it very much, because even though Spock struggled in command, that's a good character development for a guy who was almost perfect, although a bit trigger happy.
And not good at chess.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'm wondering then, it might be that we know that this is an episodic show and it gets reset, but does this get referred back to? It's like, is there other times when people say, you had your chance, Spock, or he stepped back from leadership opportunities because he knows that he's not best placed and he's had a bad experience?
You have to wait and see.
I will, yeah.
Does the COVID-19 pandemic give you additional sympathy for the people of New Paris?
It does, yeah. I think that's the point, that all of our lives and outlook have been altered over the last 3 or 4 months, and I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why I was more angry than maybe I would have been a year ago. But yeah, it's if there's a pandemic, a raging virus don't be a job's worth. Don't say, well, I need to go and explore this. No, you have to prioritise. That's part of being. It's making decisions. It's changing what you think you should be doing based on the circumstances you find yourself in. And it was clearly, demonstrably, a terrible decision which cost a number of lives and potentially millions more, or however many was on the Paris colony.
Yeah, what we don't know is what the effect of the new Paris pandemic was. If it just makes you go a bit deaf for a few days or get an itchy rash on your head, then it's not as bad as if it kills you as soon as you catch it.
Yeah.
We don't get that information.
We don't know.
Who do you think deserves the most credit for the survival of the 5 crewmen?
Oh,
Kirk
Scotty.
Or Scotty or Spock?
Scotty. Scotty came up with the solution.
Yeah, and he implemented it?
Yeah.
Made it happen?
Yeah, without a doubt, Scotty.
Okay. You weren't happy with we've already said, leadership.
No.
You weren't happy with the insubordination.
No.
You weren't happy with the arrogance.
No one played their part. No one, Mayors didn't really have much to do at all. Scotty done his job, and the rest of them just,
There'll be a lot of paperwork following that incident.
I would be looking for demotions, reprimands, suspensions, including Kirk.
Certainly, yeah, reprimands at least.
At the very least.
Yeah. There's apparently a novel that was written that picks up a little bit of this story. Obviously not canonical, but it suggests that Scotty's report led to court-martial proceedings against Boma, and he was kicked out of the fleet. Really? But Spock never mentioned Boma's behaviour in his own report.
Yeah. I mean, Boma wasn't the worst. I mean, he was a bit cheeky, but he didn't make any bad decisions.
For no reason. Like, right from the start, he had this attitude, this chip on his shoulder about Spock. Apparently they wanted to bring that actor back and use the character again, but circumstances prevented it. Off-screen circumstances.
Well, let's chat more about the off-screen circumstances you may have for us.
Okay.
Give us some trivia.
Yeah, okay. So the original air date, we got into 1967. This was the 5th of January. This one aired. The Galileo 7 was directed by Bob Gist. Let's say Gist.
Okay.
He started out as an actor. He was in the Hitchcock classic Strangers on a Train. And he also directed episodes of shows including The Twilight Zone, Mission Impossible, and Hawaii Five-0. This was his only Star Trek episode, and he died in 1998 at the age of 80. Oliver Crawford wrote the episode, although I think there were some staff rewrites thereafter. And this was the first of 3 that he wrote. He also wrote for shows like Ironside and Kojak. And he died in 2008 at the age of 91. He was one of a small number of writers to recover after being blacklisted in the 50s and get back to working.
Very good. Is he any relation to another Crawford?
John Crawford?
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't come up. John Crawford was Ferris, obviously. This was his only Star Trek appearance amongst a remarkable 223 acting credits over a 45-year career.
Obviously a highly regarded character actor.
Yeah, he was in the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno, as well as TV shows like The Waltons. I think he was a sheriff maybe for a long time in that, or a judge. And then he was in Knight Rider. He died in 2010 at the age of 90. Don Marshall, we've mentioned him, he played Boma.
Mm-hmm.
This was his only Star Trek appearance, although they wanted him to return. But
quite a familiar face.
Yeah, he got the lead, or a lead, in Land of the Giants, which he had to do instead. He also appeared in, he was fairly prolific in the 60s and the 70s, a little bit less so in the 80s and not much after that. But he appeared in shows like Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. He appeared in The Incredible Hulk, and he died in 2016 at the age of 80. Peter Marco played Gaetano, Rhys Vaughn was Latimer, and Phyllis Douglas completed the Galileo 7 as Yeoman Mears. Douglas went on to make one further appearance in a later episode, and the other 2 didn't have any other Star Trek appearances. All 3 had stopped acting by 1971, so within 3 or 4 years of this, bar one single appearance by Peter Marco in a 1977 film called The Capitol Hill Girls. Peter Marco died in 1991 at the age of 73. Douglas was also 73 when she died in 2010, and Vaughn also died in 2010, but he was 74. Robert Big Buck Maffei played the alien creature with the big spear. He also appeared in shows like Bonanza and Lost in Space, and he was a voice actor on the 1978 animated version of The Lord of the Rings.
Who did he play? Oh.
He just did general character work on it. And he died in 1982 at the age of 52.
How did he die?
Who knows, but these big guys, their hearts don't seem
I was going to say that, yeah, 7'1", you tend to find they have health conditions that make them that height, that size.
Now, this was the 11th of 67 episodes for which Joseph da Costa, that's Dagosta, was credited as the casting director. He was the VP of worldwide casting at MGM for almost 20 years. And more recently, he's worked at the Stella Adler School of Acting in LA. He's married to Barbara Baldavin.
Okay, yeah, that's
She
Angela.
was Angela in the last 2 episodes, and 2 episodes ago she was our Columbo connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us back nicely to Joe D'Agosta, because along with all that casting work, he also received producing credits for 3 television shows.
Right.
1 episode of The Bionic Woman, 1 episode of Barretta, and 2 Columbos.
Oh, which ones?
Old Fashioned Murder and Fade into Murder.
Oh,
with Bill Shatner.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. So that's our Columbo connection for this week.
That's it. Well pulled out. That's a good one. Good find.
A little bit of trivia. Every time you see Shuttlecraft in the future or in any additional episodes, at least in the original effects, the footage is from this episode.
Right, okay.
The Galileo, despite being destroyed, shows up a couple more times until they paint a 2 on the side of it. The creature, the big hairy ape creature's makeup was considered too grotesque for close-ups, so you didn't see any of those.
Too grotesque or not good enough?
Well, I think it was the censors that made the decision.
Right.
Similarly, the speared body of Latimer wasn't really shown clearly. Leonard Nimoy thought he, and by extension Spock, struggled to carry scenes in the absence of Kirk in this episode when faced with the command, although it was written on the basis of the early reaction to Spock and people liking Spock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeoman Mears was a rewrite of Yeoman Rand.
Yeah.
She was written in this episode and replaced by Yeoman Mears at the last minute.
I meant to say as well, when talking about Rand, it was disappointing that they never gave her a sort of farewell. They didn't. They just stopped using her. They didn't write a little a story. Maybe she was transferred, or she decided she wanted to go back to
just
Earth.
don't mention her again.
Yeah, didn't seem fair.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they made it up to her, other than by putting her into the movies. But who knows? Tension between Ferris and Kirk that we talked about apparently extended to the actors as well. John Crawford later said in an interview that he had a very unpleasant time working on the show.
Oh, interesting. Oh, bitchy.
Okay, so international titles. Got a few that are a bit different from what the English version is. The French went with Le Galileo ne répond plus. The Galileo no longer replies, and that makes no sense because it didn't reply in the first place.
Yeah.
Portuguese go with O Primeiro Comando, the first command. Okay, fair enough. And our friends in Japan,
go for it.
They go for Gorira no Wakuse, which means the planet of gorillas.
Yeah, I like that one. That's my favourite.
It's a bit close to Planet of the Apes, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Next week, we have the 17th episode of Season 1, The Squire of Gothos.
Okay, interesting title.
I think it's one of those ones you just need to get past to get onto a couple of good ones. We'll see how it goes.
We will.
In the meantime, as usual, we are all over social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you could tell your Star Trek loving friends on the internet all about this show if you enjoy it, then that would be very much appreciated.
Would indeed.
And we'll see you in a week's time.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.